Greenland. It's not green. I don't mean to smash any of your hopes and dreams. Maybe you're a 10th century Viking hoping to find a wonderful new place to settle, and Greenland sounds particularly enticing. Well, if you are a Viking of the Viking Age, I have bad news for you. It was named that almost specifically to confuse you, because they were worried that without that name, nobody would want to move there. Of course, people already lived there, the Inuit, obviously, and that in large part is who's still there, vibing out, covered in snow like 9 months out of the year, playing futsal indoor, a little 5-on-5 action, little sauce, right? They're going to the futsal World Cup, actually. Going to get a little Greenland v. Afghanistan at that, which is going to be one of the most are you seeing this shit sort of matches in international football of all time. But yeah, they're just there. Everybody thinks it's huge. It's really not. I mean, it is big, but it looks like the size of Africa up there, but with the Mercator projection. Yeah, I'm going to blow your mind. I don't know how many people watching Zealandism watch that guy Zealand stream. Obviously, that's a completely different person. But from time to time, he pulls this up. It's called the true size of, right? And if you just, it gives you the true size of things with like the projections. So if I right click, I think I can get rid of all those. So the Mercator projection, this is related to football in some way. The Mercator projection, it distorts the further away from the equator it gets. And if you notice, Greenland is pretty far away from the equator. So let's say we wanted to put Greenland in Africa. It's not quite as big as you might think. Now, it's not small. Right, the United States obviously is not small, and this thing goes from Cuba to Maine. So, I mean, there is some serious distance traveled by this thing, right? But it goes from Tunis to Stockholm. Okay, it's not small. It's just not nearly as big as you think it is. It's not bigger than Canada. It's not bigger than the United States. It's just normal big, right? And amazingly, only 56,000 or so people live on it. But what you might also notice about Greenland is that it's kind of to the left. And if we're drawing a line right down the Atlantic Ocean, not to cut off a point of Brazil, because if you do notice, Brazil actually it sticks nearly as far to the right as Greenland does. You'll see that Greenland actually only has one natural, true footballing home. And that's Concacaf. I don't know if you've heard this before. I feel like I made a video about it before, but I don't know. Maybe I even broke this out before. I'm a goldfish. I'm swimming around in a bowl and I see a story and I'm like, bro, I'm going to talk about it. Because Greenland's been in the news for a lot of reasons. Most of them dumb. Most of them you already know. And you don't need me to rehash them. I'm pretty sure Trump wants to buy Greenland just because he sees it on the map and he doesn't know the Mercator projection and he thinks, ooh, big land, yay. Right? That's awesome. Maybe that'll distract people from the fact that I'm in the Epstein files that my own administration released. Oops, sorry. But the problem, right, with this whole Greenland thing is that it's fucking up Greenland getting into Concacaf. And that's messed up. Greenland applied to be in they've been working on this for a long time. All right, they can't join UEFA, even though Greenland is owned by Denmark, right? And it is part of Denmark, but it is autonomous in many ways. It cannot join UEFA. After Gibraltar and the Faroe Islands joined UEFA, which is, of course, the European governing football body. After those two joined UEFA in 2007, UEFA passed a thing that basically said you have to be a sovereign country recognized by the UN in order to participate in football in UEFA. Otherwise, Greenland would just follow along with Denmark and join the micronations, or the population-sized micronations anyways, playing in Europe. But they can't do that. But you know what is a home for lots of nations that aren't recognized by the United Nations? Concacaf. Concacaf has Montserrat, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, Guadeloupe, right? Martinique. All of these countries play in Concacaf. Some of those countries are not even in FIFA, but they're in Concacaf, right? And they're allowed to play and try and qualify for the Gold Cup and play legit major international matches. For example, I believe Curacao and Aruba can go to the World Cup, but Bonaire can't. I don't know why. I have no idea. Guadeloupe and Martinique have both made it to the Gold Cup before, but they are not eligible to attempt to qualify for the World Cup because they are too much a part of France, right? They're like actual states of France. So they can't try to make the World Cup under FIFA's rules, but they can still play in CONCACAF, in Gold Cup. They just can't play World Cup qualifying. Well, the good news for Greenland is the way they're attempting to apply to come in their relationship with Denmark means that they would be able to join CONCACAF and then try to eventually qualify for the World Cup. However remote that possibility seems. And that initial application was accepted, right? And discussions were begun about how exactly it would work. This is not the easiest thing in the world to send a team from the Cayman Islands up to New Greenland. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to have a stadium to play in Greenland. They have to practice indoors, according to this ESPN article by Mark Ogden. I love Mark Ogden. He writes so many good pieces about things that I am interested in. Allegedly, 8 to 10 months out of the year, they have to practice indoors. There is some sort of national stadium, right? They play a tournament, kind of a Greenland Cup in August between all of the different club teams in the country. That's for like a week. All right, and that's still weather pending. So in order to pull this off, they have to actually get a field together, and they've been working on it, right? I remember seeing conceptual drawings of like some sort of dome complex that they were going to try to build. It doesn't have to be huge. It just it has to be sort of the Iceland model, where Iceland has a lot of these indoor pitches around that they're not these big stadiums, but they are like an indoor regulation pitch that you're able to have. But as I've learned studying the Marshall Islands attempts to get a team recognized by Oceania and FIFA, there are a lot of things that go into it. You have to have a proper hotel accommodations. You have to be able to facilitate travel. You have to have the proper governmental infrastructure, right, with the police presence and all these sorts of things to be able to guarantee team safety, player safety, right, the safety of all of these things going on. We're currently, the Zealand channel, at least I've heard, is currently making a Hidden Grounds episode about Haiti. And of course, the Haitian club that he's following, they can't play their home CONCACAF matches in Haiti. They have to play their home CONCACAF matches in the Dominican Republic, even though they do have a stadium in Haiti. It just doesn't, it's not qualified to be able to host CONCACAF matches, and they can't guarantee the safety of the team and all those different sorts of things. Right? That is what Greenland is trying to do. If you're wondering why this process takes so long, let alone coming up with a full plan for where these matches are going to be played. But the political situation has now apparently complicated that, and this is ruining one of my favorite things in the world of football, okay? The coach, Morten Rutkier, told ESPN and Mark Ogden that every time somebody's trying to call them now to interview them, it's always about the Trump thing, and it's not about them trying to get into CONCACAF. And he's like, look, we've been working on this since 2019. It's something the players are dreaming of. They believe they actually have an opportunity to try and make something happen. And I'm going to be honest, CONCACAF is a lot of fun and chaotic, and the away days are tough. But if you can get a couple of guys coming up through the Danish league, believe in miracles, right? Curacao was not that far away from qualifying for a World Cup out of CONCACAF. And Greenland is definitely a team that would be able to go recruit from a diaspora a little bit and maybe be able to put a team together that can actually push for one of those spots. I mean, the World Cup just expanded to 48 teams. Also, the coach noted to Mark Ogden, it's a totally crazy football country. Everyone plays football everywhere. The children are playing on ice, on football fields inside, outside. They talk about football every hour they can. It talks about at multiple points in this story, people just sitting over on the side watching all these football matches on their phone, much the same way you'd see in the rest of the world. The CEO of the KAK, which is the Greenland Football Federation, says they're talking with the government about building what is called an air dome, which I'm guessing it's kind of what it sounds like, and sort of like the things that Iceland was able to put up so that they could train their golden generation, that kind of footballing investment that created that amazing team that went to the World Cup. This kind of dome that would allow them to play football year-round, because Mark Ogden estimates basically that 10 months out of the year, the Nuuk National Stadium is not usable because it is outdoors with and these are fans watching a game at the Nuuk National Stadium. It is on there's like just a rocky hillside on one side that you sit on to watch the games, which is awesome. Like, I love the personality of football being expressed through the stadiums, but you need a place where you can host the Cayman Islands in March that isn't covered in snow. And in a weird turn of events, apparently around this air dome, the sort of political pressure that has been put on Greenland's acquisition by the United States, which is obviously not going to happen, is Denmark is now feeling more pressure to invest in Greenland, because there is, of course, an independence movement in Greenland, right? That's the sort of thing that exists always, at least at a simmer in places like this, but apparently it has gotten louder even before the claim, and this isn't an independence movement to join the United States. It's an independence movement to just be Greenland, right? And so Denmark, perhaps feeling the pressure to invest more in Greenland, could give Greenland the opportunity to get a little more infrastructure because they have basically no roads. It's all just bush planes and a couple of flights in and out of Copenhagen and Reykjavik, Iceland. So some more roads, which obviously is going to be very difficult to manage when you're under snow 9 months out of the year. In some investments in sporting infrastructure, which was apparently one of the key issues as this CONCACAF thing comes to a head here in the recent general election that I believe was held in March. But there is a dose of realism maybe at the end here where it says, this isn't about Greenland playing the US or Mexico. It's about having the chance to play competitively against nations of a similar level and giving the players a dream to live. And I'm going to level with you here for a second. Football is a beautiful game for a lot of reasons. And one of those reasons is no matter where you were born, no matter what the religion is, no matter what the government is, no matter how insane or how not insane where you were raised is, if you put your heart and mind to it, you work your butt off, you should be able to get onto a field and represent your country in a competition, in an actual official recognized competition against other countries competing for something important. Even if that's something important like San Marino, for example, is just one win in the Nations League. Greenland would be able to play in the CONCACAF Nations League. They would be able to play in World Cup qualifying. They would be able to compete against all the other Caribbean islands and some of the Central American nations that they can hold the candle to, quality-wise. And that is an opportunity if you were born and raised in Greenland and you put your heart and mind to it and you work your butt off, you should have. They should be in CONCACAF, and hopefully they're able. Hopefully it's not too expensive to get one of those air domes up so that they can finally get a FIFA-approved stadium all year round and not just for 2 months. It's hard to fit all your matches into 2 months,